Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody's supposed to say good evening. Good evening. Thank you. My name is Stan Davis. I want to welcome you to the Medfield Historical Society annual meeting. Glad to have all of you here. Don't want to worry your patience or prolong the time. Don't want to seem like we're rushing. But at this time, I want to call Paul Emery up for a presentation of the flag.
Would you all stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm a representative of the local American Legion post here in Rodeo, and I've been asked to give a little bit of our history and how we got here. I'll make it kind of quick, I know it's kind of a long program. So originally there was an American Legion post in Midfield years ago after World War II, and no one seems to know the history of it, but we can't find a whole lot. And the state American Legion hasn't been able to help us much. But what we do know is that at some point the local fellows decided to band with Matthews and joined Post 235 over in Matthews, and became the Mid-Hill Matthews American Legion. It was decided a few years ago that Matthews had sort of forgotten about good old Mid-Hill. So some of those fellows spun off and started a new chapter here, Post here in Mid-Hill, which is what we did. It was led by Ed Burry, who I think a lot of you knew Ed. I think he was a member of the Historical Society. And Ed got a few of us together, veterans, and we met over at the Chamber of Commerce back in 2019. And we decided to form up a post. And we did do that. We got a lot of support. The town supported us financially. And the Novak Hospital gave us meeting facilities over there where we met for a while. We've since moved to the VFW over Bain School Road. We're not affiliated with the VFW, we're simply tenants in that facility. Our goals, what we try to do is, originally, was to help indigent veterans. It turns out there are none. We don't know of anybody that really needs that kind of help. So what we try to do is we try to bring ourselves in the community, and we try to help people where we think they need help. We always lean towards mid-millions and towards veterans wherever possible. Some of the things we've been able to do is we started a women's fast-pitch softball league, and we started a men's baseball league, or baseball team. The baseball team has been dissolved temporarily because there isn't enough competition. And we're trying now to get that put back together so we can make them active. But the women are very much active, and they're playing over at the high school for those of you who'd like to go. We got involved with the Mid-Hill Veterans Breakfast. We have put on a big fundraiser pickleball tournament every year in conjunction with Mid-Hill Madness. We do wreath laying ceremonies at the cemetery. And again, I can go on and on and on with this list, but we really try and participate in activities for and about Mid-Hill. So currently we're doing bingo, the fundraiser. We do that the first and third Wednesday every month over at the VFW. We do it primarily for seniors, so it's 10:30 in the morning. I really don't know a whole lot to tell you. I've got a lot of detail here. You're welcome to ask any kind of questions that you want. But we are active. We have about 100 members. We never seem to get 100 members in a meeting. We seem to get more like 20, 25 members in a meeting. But if you know any veterans that need help, we can direct veterans to the VA and direct veterans to different programs. That's kind of what our goals and what our objectives are. So, about it.
leave some of the papers.
Underneath somewhere.
No, the bottom. Yeah. No, that would do. Thank you. We'll be flying blind. Yes. Before we get started with our next presentation, I want to recognize a few people that are with us here today. Our new mayor and my friend and his lovely bride, Dale and Bain. Will you stand, please? I'm sure you know. And where's Trey? Oh.
How do you miss me?
I think Trey is a new commissioner also. Is your wife here also?
She's not.
Okay. Give a wave, Trey. I believe Trey is also the liaison from the town to the Historical Society. He's the person that goes to bat for us when we need some money or need something. There you go, something special. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dale. Dale is a former, I started to say support. He was a former board member. He's still a very good support. One thing I'll say about Dale, I've been around here for about 18 or 20 years now. And in all of that time, Dale Dalton has never said no to me for anything.
That's because he says it to me.
So, thank you, man. At this time, we're going to introduce our first speaker, Wes Fryer. Is a middle school classroom teacher at Providence State School, who moved to the Midville area from Oklahoma about 4 years ago. Wes is a dedicated community volunteer with a profound passion for local history and the preservation of oral stories. During his time in Oklahoma, he founded Story Chasers as part of the Oklahoma Digital Centennial Project, starting in 2007. This initiative empowered regional teachers and students to record and archive over 1,000 digital stories documenting family and community history. Wes has since brought that energy to our local community as a volunteer with the Midville Historical Society. Wes is truly thrilled to be part of the society and to contribute to the important work of preserving our local treasures. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Wes Fryer.
Thank you all so much. Ooh, talk a little louder. This is too loud, Tony, and we'll turn it down. We have a special mic. Well, the last time I was in this room, we were having a special Christmas tea with some special cider, some special drinks. And I have a question for you about treasure. How many of you have purchased or made or obtained a Christmas gift or another gift for someone that you have had to hold on to and not tell them about for a while? Does that happen? Is that hard for anybody else? Okay. Well, I'm about to get to share with y'all some treasure that is a couple of years old, because Becky and I have had a chance. She has interviewed so many people. We have many, many interviews in the archives of the Historical Association. But together we might have done 10 or so. And tonight, I'm going to have a chance to share 2 of these, some clips of them. They're over an hour long, so just don't worry, we're not going to do an hour. First one's 2 minutes long. It's about Bain Academy in Philadelphia Church. And then the second one is about a trailblazer in our midst. And it has to do with the FAA and air traffic control. And I think you're going to be touched by this story. And if I'm touched by it, don't be surprised, because I can kind of get emotional sometimes. So, how many of you have been to read gold? You are familiar with the history of gold history here. Who has been a docent here at the assay office and the panning? Look at that. We've got some experts here. So I was quite excited when I moved here 3.5 years ago with my wife to learn that gold history started right here in North Carolina. Now, can you really call a 17 or 18 pound rock a nugget? Because in Oklahoma, we didn't really call that a nugget. And as I understand it, that was not very deep, right? This was surface gold at that location. And so that sparked our first gold rush. And so I want tonight to not only share buried treasure, and I'm going to use this metaphor because just like buried gold, I think much of our history is not as visible as it could be and should be, not just for Mid-Hillians and for North Carolinians, but this is history for the nation and the world. And so tonight, I'm going to offer you a guided excavation of some Mid-Hill firsts, and I will credit Becky, who is a good delegator, I have observed, which is a good skill to have. To talk about first. So, I want to first acknowledge that, we, those in the room, were not the first stewards of this land. And Becky is actually going to update us on an exciting donation that has recently been given to the Historical Society that relates to this. But the Catawba people, and in their language means people of the river, the Waxhaw nations, they shaped this land for thousands of years before white Europeans came and enslaved Africans came and others came to our area. The Waxhaw eventually merged with the Catawba. As you probably know, smallpox and disease was devastating to native populations. And so there is evidence of their mark that they left on this land with arrowheads, early tools. Has anyone here actually traveled to Egypt? Have you gone to Egypt? I had a chance to go about 7 years ago. And it was a conference there. And I was absolutely fascinated, right? Because what remains in Egypt, it's the stone, right? Yes, the pyramids, but there's lots and lots of stone, and there's paintings. And, I grew up in the Midwest. My dad was in the Air Force, we moved around, but I'm a child of the Chisholm Trail. I grew up in Kansas, mostly worked in the Air Force in Texas and taught, and then Oklahoma for the last 16 years before we quickly relocated here. There are trees. People say, why did you move? Several reasons, but we were looking for trees. We did. We found a few of those. I still got a lot of my yard. That's right. So, I say this because how do we learn about the past? How do we learn about folks who lived here thousands and thousands of years ago? Those were pre-literate times too. There are artifacts that remain. But see, we have an opportunity today to preserve, and we are preserving right here in the historic village, very important artifacts. But what if those artifacts could talk? They can't. But we have the chance to talk to people who can tell stories. So I grew up in a Presbyterian family, so I've been very interested in the Presbyterian heritage of this area. John Rogers was the first recorded settler, and what's interesting about this is, what happens when you search the internet now? Because Google does not just give you 10 results and more pages. What happened? It's called an AI overview, and they are giving you the answer. Okay, but the question is, what were they trained on, and where are they getting that answer? Well, when I searched Google for this, it didn't have the documentation for this. And so I really think, and this is one thing that I've been working with Sue and with Becky and with others, that digitizing and making our archives available to a wider group of folks is so important. Because how does, especially younger generations, get information today? If you're going to say microfiche and going to the library, that's not the right answer. I bet some of you remember that. Do you remember going to the library and having to scan microfiche and print stuff? And, it's a different world, okay? So it's important that we preserve this history and that we share this history. How many of you have a connection to Philadelphia Church? How many in the room? Okay, so I feel relatively, I don't know what the right word is, but like, here I am telling you about the history of your church, and I've lived here 4 years. Well, what I will say is I immediately moved to this area. We live actually in Stevens Mill, just in Union County, right across 485. And I immediately drove by Philadelphia, and I saw the cemetery, or is it a graveyard? Because if it's next to a church, which one is it? Okay. Call it cemetery. I knew there was a lot of history there. So the Scotch-Irish settlers that came here made Philadelphia Church an anchor. And of the 7 churches, which were anchor churches in this whole area, what is the only one that has still been in continuous service and operation? The building has moved and it's a new construction, but it's Philadelphia Church. Early leaders in the church include signers of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. And I told you that Becky was pretty good at recruiting folks. Did y'all know there was a little PBS special that aired last year? It was, and this is called Trail of History. Have any of you all watched any Trail of History? Okay, so here's your assignment for tonight. I'm not going to show this to you. The last 7 minutes, this is a 27-minute episode, Trail of History, boom towns, small towns on the rise, about Mint Hill. And the thing that was, well, among many things, what was unique about Mint Hill is, what do you think caused many of these other communities to grow? Think about transportation. It was the railroad. That's right. And so Mint Hill was unique because Mint Hill did not have a railroad that was the sort of catalyst for the growth of the town. And so what was the real center of civic life in Mint Hill? It was the church and it was the school. And of course the mills too, right? Because the mills were vital to be able to grind your grain into flour. So, the Philadelphia Church remains the only continuously operating church among the county's 7 originals. And I encourage you to watch that Trail of History. It's on YouTube, but if you just Google Trail of History North Carolina, this episode is called Boom Towns, and it aired actually on October 14th of last year. Let's talk about gold a little bit. So, anybody wearing gold tonight? All right. What's happening to the price of gold? You watching that? Have you been to Gold Hill? What is the difference between the gold at Gold Hill, North Carolina, and the gold at our Reed Gold Mine? What's the difference? Reed Gold Mine gold was surface gold. How far down was the gold at Gold Hill? Quite a ways. And so I had a chance for an old timer to tell me some of that history. He said that the British company that still owns those mineral rights can still operate if the price of gold goes up. Because is there any more gold in the ground? Yes. I don't know. How many gold mines are there around Mint Hill?
There were
18. 18, that's right. Now, do the owners of those properties really want that to be advertised to the world? Not necessarily, okay? But the point is, there's gold beneath our feet. How many of you have gone to Stevens Creek Nature Preserve? Have you walked there before? And why is there so much white rock around it? What is that? It's a quartz. And the veins of quartz are where the gold was. And there is literal gold below our feet, but there's also gold right here in this room and in this village and in this community. And so we have a very rich history. And you see my little metaphor here. You remember cassette tapes? Any of y'all remember reel-to-reel tapes? I didn't bring any of that. But we got some interviews on cassette tapes. What happens if we don't get those digitized or made digital before long? Do you still have a cassette tape player? We do here. But that's part of the work that we're doing, because some of that treasure, just like treasure in a treasure chest, is captured on that media. And if we don't share it, then it could be lost to history. It could be lost to the future. But it's not. We're working on it. Let's talk about Bain County. Bain County was founded in 1889 by John Bain. He donated the land and established a school. It was Mecklenburg County's first graded school. And it offered a rare preparatory experience with a curriculum in physics, Latin, and rhetoric. It was transferred to the county in 1924 and it was rebuilt with a 300-seat auditorium designed by architect Louis Asbury. But that building is not standing anymore. What happened? They tore it down. Why did they do that? It was empty a long time. And what happens to some empty buildings? They get moldy and they get to the point where they can't be lived in. In fact, I walked today through the historic village here and just am so thankful for the preservation of these buildings, right? Because preserving older buildings is challenging. Well, here we go. This is our first audio clip, all right? And Meredith Arp is not here. Does anyone know Meredith? Okay. So this is an interview, and I put the date wrong. That was in 2024. It wasn't this November. It was 2024. And this is 2 minutes, a little bit more than 2 minutes. And this is her talking a little bit about her memory. So what I want you to do is listen to this. You're not going to see a video, lots of changing things. You're just going to see this picture. But I want you to listen, and I want you to think about maybe your connections, if you've got connections to Bain School, or connections to your schools, okay, where you grew up and where you studied.
Did your father go to Bain? Yes, he went through the 11th grade. And my mother-in-law actually went to Bain. And Miss Bickham and Miss Lemon were 5th and 6th grade teachers forever. Because my mother-in-law had Miss Bickham as a teacher.
And you.
And my husband and I both had Miss Bickham as a teacher. And one of our daughters had Miss Bickham as a teacher.
Oh my gosh, that's a legacy then.
Yeah.
Wow, wow.
Mint Hill is just the kind of place that I think if you are involved in it, you love it. You know, even though there was absolutely nothing as far as entertainment was concerned when we were growing up, the church was our social.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were free. You take Halloween.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't dare trust your children to go walk in the streets. Our children would go out and they would walk all over Mint Hill. And people would have them come in and give them popcorn and hot chocolate.
What do you remember about Bain School? You started there in the 3rd grade?
It was the best school in the area. It was just, teachers were all very kind. It wasn't that big. We had a big gymnasium.
How many students do you think were in your class?
Oh, probably 20. And then when I was in 7th grade, they added on and built the wall building across from the side of the old one. But it started out as an old 2-story building that the town attempted to try to save. But it stayed empty too long and just finally the mold and all got in it.
What grades did it go up to at that time then?
Actually, when Bain Academy was started, it was all the way to the 11th grade, which was the final year of high school then.
Okay.
And then when I went to it, it went to the 9th grade.
All right, so I want you to take a minute or two, talk at your table about hearing Meredith Arp's voice and her connections to Bain Academy and Bain School, and your connections, either to that school or to your own schools. So please, talk. I am a teacher, so, you know, you don't get to work with me. All right, let me get your attention again. Now, we have a fancy system here, and I borrowed it from our music teacher. We have 2 microphones. I gave Sue a mic, I have a mic. And we're not going to make you talk. If you don't want to talk, that's okay, but there were some interesting stories people were sharing. So if you're willing to just share a little bit about what was said at your table or what you had to share, you can feel free to kind of volunteer your neighbor. We're not going to have to twist anybody's arm. Let's have a couple brave folks. Okay.
I'm Paula Newell, and I went to Bain for 9 years, first through the 9th grade, and I was telling that my first year we did not have a cafeteria. I guess they were under construction. And so we had to go get our lunch. We were science building in the old part. We had glass bottles for milk. Of course, someone always would drop it. glass of milk would go everywhere, and we had to take the lunch back to our rooms. And I was so excited to have a cafeteria, and they had the best food there. It was going there.
That's awesome. Who was who ran the cafeteria?
Well, Miss Ross was there, Dylan was there. I just remember mainly food.
Food makes an impression. Okay, who remembers glass bottles and milk? Or just an age ourselves? Okay, a couple other people willing to share. Who's got a microphone? Are you? Okay, yeah. You're not going to share? Okay, well, be brave, share. Tell us something, please. See, this is called wait time. And we learn as teachers that you just kind of wait and you look at each other and then somebody will.
I went to Bain, started in fourth grade there. Before I was married for 3 years, and when kids around that age. But I really remember the old part of the school. And I was part of a group trying to save the school, to make a community center out of it. But what I wanted to say was I encourage you. Go look at the new monument we built 2 years ago. It's got the original school bell, original face bricks on it, and it's really a good city park.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else? We can have one more. Come on, one more. It doesn't have to be about Bain too. If you got a connection to your school and you were thinking about your connection to it. See, we got some people volunteering in the neighborhoods. We call that voluntold.
I'm Kathy Davis. And I was telling them when I went to start in 6th grade, I got home and I said, I've got Miss Linda. You're just like, oh no. My dad says, well, I had Miss Linda in the 6th grade. I said, yeah, but Daddy, she's old. He says, well, she was old when I had her.
Well, relationships are so important. And this is my 32nd year to be in education. And those relationships, I bet everybody in this room would think about a teacher that made a difference. Maybe it was an elementary, maybe it was a high school, maybe it was the coach, but you can probably think about that person. Okay, well, thank you all for sharing. So a rich legacy has been cultivated here in Mint Hill, and the Black family's property, and this is something that Becky will tell us a little bit about, has just been sold, and we have been diving into our archives to learn a little bit about their property, because it's possible that one of the silos from the Black farm and dairy may be able to be relocated here to the Carl McEwen Historic Village. They started in 1944 with just 2 cows. They went to, was it Michigan they went to? Or was it 1 cow? No, there was another family that did 1 cow. But they went and they got the Holstein cows, and the Holsteins were good because it had, was it more fat or less fat? More milk?
Less fat.
There you go. See, you can tell who has the real knowledge here. It's on the front row.
The Black county, Mark is here.
Okay.
Correct?
Holstein cows. And we have interviews with family members. In fact, one who was born in 1919. I'm not sharing that clip tonight, but we have that interview. And so that history has been preserved. And lo and behold, we already heard about bottled milk. Why did you put milk in a bottle? Well, that was before what? Pasteurization, right? And so part of that history that's in our archive, we're not going to play that clip tonight, but we're going to be sharing this, is that Tommy Black at age 3 contracted polio during that outbreak. The family was actually, as I understand it, not told, but should you continue with the milk? And anyway, that whole history, and then the road to recovery, the rehabilitation, the orthopedic hospital, Gastonia, all of those stories are part of our archive. And so we're having a big transition in our community with land, right? Because you don't have to look far to see big changes happening. And there's a lot of folks coming. I think it was a year ago, we had the city manager of Charlotte at our school, and at that time he was saying 150 people were coming per day to Charlotte, per day. A lot of folks that need housing. So the history here is that historic family land for the Black family has been recently sold, and Becky could tell us a little bit more about that. How many of you knew that Carl McEwen had the first air ambulance in our area? Yes. So in the 1930s, he operated the first air ambulance. It transported critical patients to Duke and Raleigh when local care was not sufficient. And that aircraft, which you see right there, that's not AI, that's a real picture. As almost all the pictures. The gold, that was a real, I didn't have a picture of gold, but all the rest of these are from our archives. And that aircraft was donated to the U.S. Army for the World War II effort. And his grandson, Mickey, recalls childhood rides in the ambulance airplane. All right, now we get to my favorite one. We have a pioneer among us. Did you know that? Reverend Stan Davis is a Navy veteran and currently serves as the board chair, the president for the Bain Historical Society. As you're going to hear, he has been a pioneer and he has broken barriers. I'm going to just go ahead and let his voice speak for his story.
My name's Stan Davis. I'm the president with the Mint Hill Historical Society and have been for, I'll just say, at least 10 years. I was the first and only Black air traffic controller in the state of West Virginia.
Wow.
They had never had a Black air traffic controller.
Wow.
Second day on the job, this guy named Howard Neely walks up to me, and how they knew the information they knew about me, I don't know, but they did. He walks up, he said, "They tell me you're a preacher." I said, "Yeah, that's right." Now I weigh maybe 15 pounds more than I weigh now. Had a full-blown beard, full-blown afro.
Okay.
I did look bad. I mean, I could make a face that made you think I was going to jump on me. And I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "Well, we don't need you here." He said, "Why don't you go back where you came from?"
Oh my gosh.
My eyebrows went up, but I'm going, what have I got into?
No kidding.
And then he turns and walks off. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody but the chief controller that hired me.
Oh my gosh.
And once Harry signed me off and they made the announcement, Stan Davis is full-fledged, everything turned completely around. And I think part of it was because of my size.
Yeah.
And now I could speak up for myself without feeling like
You were trainer or training.
something's going to happen on the training report.
Right.
And I stayed there. Wasn't long after I got my ticket, a guy that's when EEO came into being. And the announcement was made that a gentleman from Washington was coming to visit. And everybody, and I was still the only Black, everybody thought that he was coming to see how I was being treated.
Right.
So the treatment started getting better. The guy that had treated me as bad, he asked me one day, the same day the guy was coming, Howard Neely, he said, "Can I speak to you a minute in the equipment room?" So we went in this room where they had all the electrics, switching, giving it. He said, "You know, there's a guy coming from EEO or something like that." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know why he's coming?" I said, "No." He said, "I'm going to ask you for a favor." I said, "No, what is that?" "Please don't tell me how I treated you." And I said, "I didn't get where I am today by ratting people out I said, everything I've gotten up to this point, I said, I've earned it. And I said, I've earned my ticket. And I said, you can't treat me like you've been treated. And the crowning glory of all of that is when I transferred out of Charleston to here, Howard Neely had already transferred. I transferred before he did. He would transfer someplace else. He retired in Virginia. I'm sitting at my house one day, and a mutual friend that transferred down here with me, Don Connor, he called me one day and he said, I got somebody that wants to talk to you. I said, okay. I said, who you got? He said, Howard Neely. I said, okay. I said, I'll listen to it. I'm sitting at home, phone rings. Hello. Hey, Stan, this is Howard. I said, okay, yeah, how you doing? Doing fine. I said, what's the deal? He said, me and the woman I want to marry, we're getting married in Charlotte at Queens College. Will you do our wedding?
Oh my. Wow.
When I did I did the ceremony, I did the singing, I did.
You did the whole thing.
And we became friends, and I probably drove up there and had dinner with him probably 3 different times.
Wow. Wow.
But you never know.
Healing.
Okay, please turn and talk about that story. Talk at your table, please. So, I will not try to pretend like it is easy to have these conversations. It's hard. But do you not love the end of that story? Why do you love that? Why do you love the end of that? There's forgiveness. There's grace. There's healing. And I'll observe that there's courage on the part of those who share that story. There is.
I want to tell the experience that makes me cry. My father was a college graduate. He was principal of a school, but because of the situation with black and white, he eventually had to work on a garbage truck. And when I was asked, what does your father do? I would have to say he's a garbage man. But he had more integrity than any man I've ever known. He taught us, his 7 children, that names didn't mean anything. And we weren't allowed to call names. But when I was at Charleston, there was a room that was called the radar room, where we controlled the airplane, the radar. And this room was probably, it may have been 12 by 12. Plus it had all the equipment in it. It was usually pitch dark, with the exception of your data man. If I was working the radar, there was a man sitting beside me that if I gave an instruction, descend to maintain 2,000 or climb and do this, he would write the numbers and things down on the strip so that I would know the last thing I see at the airport. So my being there, being the only African American, only black person there, And being new, I knew nobody's name. I knew nobody's voice. But to show you how, I guess, harsh, and I don't want to say mean, I don't know if it was meant to be mean, but since I knew nobody's voice, I'd be working airplanes, and they would be in the back, 2 or 3 of them, and they would be saying, nigger, nigger, nigger. Just the whole time I'd be there. But I had too much integrity to go to the boss and say, do something about it. I was a minister then, and I knew that there are things that you have to endure sometime. I believe Romans 8, oh, you're going to go to preaching now. He gave it away. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for the good to them who love God and are called according to his purpose. And there was a purpose of me going through that. It made me develop to the point where names don't bother me. If I am what you're calling me, that's a different thing. But if I'm not what you're calling me, it should be like water when it does happen. But that doesn't happen instantaneously. But eventually, every person at that facility came to regard me as one of their best friends, even to the point where the one I thought was my worst enemy wanted me to do his bidding. So if you're going through some kind of crisis, whether it's with your family, whether it's with a banker or whoever, whatever it is you're going through, let it work for you. Because all things work for the good to them that love God. And I know you all love God. And he does have a purpose for your life, just like he had for mine. God.
Just to give you an idea of the integrity and character of this man, I was working up here at the Historical Society with about 50 other guys. And it was getting about lunchtime, and we were talking about, well, let's go down to the restaurant, get a bite to eat. And no one said that, Stan pulled in his truck. So we all walked over to ask him if he wanted to go to lunch with us. He was on the phone with a friend of his, apparently. We could go over here and say, I gotta go, there's a bunch of white guys coming towards my truck right now. He has a sense of humor too.
Can we give Stan a round of applause? So you may not realize you were going to come here and hear a sermon tonight, but I think you did know you were going to hear some history. And I hope that you've...
Is there an offering plate?
Is there an offering? Yeah, that's right. Let's pass the plate. Because, folks, we got work to do together. The census here in Mint Hill in 1980 that I found on Google was about 8,000. Last year, this year, the estimate is just under 30,000. A lot of folks, right? And we have quadrupled in size since 1980. Our new neighbors deserve to know the stories that shaped our land, that shaped our community. I want to thank the Mint Hill Historical Society for providing this opportunity. Because like I said, I learned about these stories almost 2 years ago. And just like a Christmas present, I couldn't tell anybody. I just haven't had a chance to share them, and tonight we have. And I feel better because of that. So, one last technical thing, and then I'll be quiet. And then Becky's going to say everything. Has anybody heard of Notebook LM? I am a STEM teacher and I teach web design and computer programming, so I am a geek, I will admit it, okay? But here's what I did for tonight, because Becky gave me, and Sue gave me, a bunch of transcripts of interviews, a bunch of news articles, a bunch of photographs. There were 27 of them, and I was able to put them into this library and then ask a question. I know that Stan talked about being an air traffic controller in his hour-long interview. Can you please tell me where he's talked about that? And it told me exactly where those spots were, and we just listened to the 5-minute excerpt. There was a lot more. My point is, we have new technology. In fact, there's technology right here on the table, right? Technology has always been a part of our lives. But today, we have other technologies, and they are doing some things that are not great. I'm not going to pretend. But there are some really, really good ways we can use that technology. And I see a whole bunch of phones here. All those phones can record stories, and they can share stories. So, Mint Hill has a lot of firsts. We have a lot of folks in this community who have preserved history. The building we're in, the village that we're in, we're here. But there are invisible parts of our history that we still need to uncover. Some of those are trapped on cassette tapes in the office, just a short distance away. And others still need to be recorded. And so I want to thank you for your support of the Historical Society. And I look forward to continuing to work with you because we've got important work to do. Thank you. And I'm going to turn the mic over, I think, to Becky. Becky's going to give us a quick update. Or do you want to say something?
Thank you, Trey. Let's give Trey another hand. Give Trey a hand. Give Trey a hand. Our next presenter is going to be our illustrious, one of my very, very, very dear friends. And she is the heart of the Mint Hill Historical Society. She is really. She has more passion for this organization than I've seen anybody with any organization. She will do anything it takes to make sure that the Mint Hill Historical Society survives. So I present to you our executive director and one of the original founders of the Mint Hill Historical Society, my friend, Becky.
And he's right. He has been our president for more than 10 years. So we are deeply indebted to him for all the wonderful things that he has done for Mint Hill. Fortunately, in our presentation tonight, Wes has told you the exciting thing that I wanted to tell you. But first of all, I want to introduce to you Mark Black. He says he won't say anything, but stand up, Mark. He is the grandson of Doc Black. Oh, and Nancy Black, Norelli, is here. And I didn't know that. And she is part of that Black family.
Mark and I are kissing cousins.
Kissing cousins. Oh, thank you so much. And so their part or part of the property is maybe about to be sold. Maybe it hasn't actually happened. So, but what has happened through the years here at the Carl J. McEwen Village is that we don't have much notice when something is about to be destroyed that we'd like to say. So we have to jump in and do, somebody says, what are you going to do 5 years, 10 years? Now, we don't even know what we're going to do tomorrow. because when the opportunity arises, we have to act. And that's what's just happened to us, that Mark has told us that we can have that silo if we can get it here. So, and I understand we have an engineer among us tonight, so I don't know who can tell us, but we have contacted the company that moved our grain bins here to see if they have any expertise in moving this type of silo. It's 64 feet high and 75 feet in circumference. So and we don't have to have all 65 feet. If some of it crumbles when we're moving it, we'll just make it shorter. But it does have a wonderful metal dome that's a part of it. But the thing that is so exciting to us is that we're seeing farms and silos disappear from our midst, and they are a treasured icon. And I do think that if we can possibly get this silo moved to our village, what a treasure, as Wes says, that will be for all the community. He told a lot about the Black Farm, or Golf Flats Dairy Farm, and the fact that he brought in those Holstein cows that were new to this area because they produced more milk. And but one of the things that he also told us is that he had, I believe he's told me, 75 acres of pastures that he had, and then he rented or leased the neighboring property so that he could keep 3 silos filled for the winter months. So I thought farming was every day, 7 days a week, especially for the dairy farmer. And so we've got to seize this opportunity that we have and move ahead with this. So if this happens, if we're able to find somebody that can move it for us, then please jump in and support us and help us raise the money to have that done. Because it truly tells the story of Mint Hill's history. I did write down that a barn is a national symbol. And I do think that's a true statement. But once again, we've got to act quickly, because he says that the developer is ready and they don't want the liability of that silo. I thought one of the cute things that was said in the interviews, he was talking about the interviews, is that they sold sweet milk, is what it was called, in those glass bottles. When Larry, his father, was the hopper, and he jumped out of the car as his mother drove by the house and took the bottles to the door and brought back the empty ones that she had placed at the door. And that they continued that until Tommy had polio, and they had to cease that. After that, they were a co-op with Farmers Dairy and sold it that way. But I just thought there are just so many interesting stories like that, history that is about the people. And the more we know about the people, that's what makes the historical society important for a time. So thank you so much. Sue says I have a few things that I have to tell you. First of all, this is a small display of some of the artifacts that we have here at the Historical Society. This wheat cradle, it's called, it was used in the day before a tractor. And it actually is on loan from the Black family. And it actually, you had to cut the hay by hand. There was no tractor to do that sort of thing. So this is a wonderful artifact, and the next time you come, we will probably have it hanging on the wall. The churn, the milking stew, the glass bottles that we talked about. And take time to come up and read a little bit about some of the articles that we have. And we're just so grateful for all the people that bring us a box of stuff. And they say, we found this in the attic. And there will be clippings of funerals, obituaries, or weddings. And we have volunteers here in this room that carefully preserve those in books so that those too are available for the people in the community to see. Every scrap of paper that is donated to us, we say. This is our book, and we're so proud of this. This is a pictorial history of Menheta. They are on sale tonight, and also Reverend Russell Carr's book, The Presbyterian Gallery on Clear Creek, is also available for your purchase. And that is a true treasure in itself, the book. It tells even the history of the Scotch-Irish Presbyterians before they came to this country. So I think I have told you everything that I was told to tell you. So thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to Stan, I guess now.
Thank you, Becky. One of the tasks that we have to do, perform when we have our annual meeting, is the election or the appointment of new board members. And we had a vacancy to come up on our board, which was filled by Trey. Lift your head, sir. Trey is already now a member of the board due to a vacancy. But because of the way we operate, protocol is for elections, we have to elect a new class, what would be the class of 28, because the class of 25 is going out. We have an election every 3 years for board members and every 2 years for officers. I don't know how I've been the president for about 14 years. And I've always been elected when I wasn't here or in. But in order for us to be on point for doing what we do, we have to send out a notice stating that if someone wanted to be a member of the board or wanted to be considered a nominee, then their name would have had to have been sitting in by a certain time. And since there were no names sent in for consideration, what we have done in the past on occasion was to ask the class that was departing if they had a problem continuing on for another 3 years as a board member. And in my soliciting everyone that had been a member that was going out, everyone has agreed that they could stay on. But that doesn't mean that they are automatically board members. What must be brought up before the board and this great gathering is whether or not they will be accepted as our new members. So in trying to do the right thing according to our bylaws, we have up for consideration these words are big enough. We have Gypsy Flo, Sharon Heath, Sam Block, Stan Davis, and Hood Dooley. And all of those people, those 5 people, have agreed that if voted on and accepted, that they would serve another 3 years. So I'm going to ask by raised hands, those in favor of accepting these 5 board members to continue on for another 3 years, please raise your hand. Seems to be unanimous. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to ask them to stand, actually, those that are here. Gypsy, Sharon, and myself. We're the ones that are present. Thank you for staying on. And I believe that's going to be it. The last thing is closing statement and recruit. If you are a person that is very passionate about history, if you're a person that don't mind coming out to a meeting at least once a month and sometimes call meetings, we would like for you to consider being a board member or being a volunteer here at the Historical Society. It is very rewarding. You get to work with great people like myself. Very nice, wonderful people like myself. Smart people. Okay, Charlie. I know I went too far on that. But you would, I promise you will enjoy being around the people that staff and work for the Mentee Historical Society. So think about it. You have to pay a membership fee, and if you can't afford it, either me or Charlie will pay that for you. So thank you very much for your coming. We do covet your support, your being with us. So, if that being all, any last comments from anyone? Yes.
Our next adventure is number 8, Rodeo. So we are really excited about it. Everybody is, when we've made our phone calls, are you going to be available this year? It's yes. So we're always looking for extra volunteers to work in our booths. So if that's a consideration, please call the office. We would welcome any help we can get. It takes a village to put this on.
If you've never been to our rodeo, you are missing a treat. It is absolutely fantastic. When you can pull just shy of 3,000 people a night for 2 nights, you're doing something right. So,
And it's for the family.
Yes, very family.
I want to say how thankful we are for Stan at the rodeo. He goes from booth to booth all night long, sampling.
Yes.
To make sure that is the top quality.
Free.
Little purse.
do that. Again, thank you all so much for coming. And I'm so used to doing a benediction, I'm starting to say same. But again, thank you so much for coming. Please go back to the table and eat some more cookies, because Dale can't take all of them home with him, hand on way. So thank you again. Thank you very much.